So legal and tax issues, we had that fantastic presentation but the presentation where I didn't really use any classic theory slides. I really tried to use more creativity and imagination. And if I had that much creativity and imagination, I would have made every class like that. But maybe next time or another life. Tell your friends. For intellectual, I don't want you to go into the book and memorize the details of this chapter. It's a dry chapter. You have to understand the basics and how they apply to Canadian business. Don't go into crazy detail and start memorizing all those pages of details. Understand the basic differences between these four components: copyrights, patents, trademarks, trade secrets. Understand the basics and how they apply. With respect to trademarks, we did the Mamba case. And did we discuss this class why he went from Mamba with an M to Mamba with an N?
Yes.
Who said yes? We did discuss it.
Yeah,
so the trademark. But nobody mentioned in this class that that's wrong. So what happened with Jason is that he used the word Mamba. M-A-M-B-A for his peanut butter. The company in Germany that makes the candies, the Werther's Original Candies, already has a candy called Mamba. So they added D&D Mamba to their product. And what happened is that he requested, they realized this was an issue, but they went forward anyways. And he hired a lawyer to look into the matter, and they made a request to double check. And they got a letter back saying, no, you're not allowed using it because it's trademarked and it's a food business, so you're not allowed. And that they dropped it. They dropped it at that. What do you guys think about that? Knowing what trademark means. What's a trademark? Yeah.
It's confusing, right? Because they're not selling the same thing.
They're not.
And Mamba isn't that's not the trademark. It is kind of, but it's also just that's what the food is.
Kind of. But remember, trademarking.
Do you say trademark is something you have to recognize?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody recognizes the candy. There's no risk of passing off.
Right.
So basic things like that. I don't want you to go too deep, but basic things like that, I want you to be able to recognize. But again, I think that you don't have to go to the crazy details as well in your book. Choice of legal form, also really good to think about. Is it a sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation? We spoke about the major differences. Differences are basically tax differences and liability differences. Those are the two main differences: cost, tax, and liability. And also the element of the corporate veil, right? Corporations being protected. That's an important concept. And I did email you all that Word file with the details on this. That's the basics. I don't think you don't want to go too much more into detail on this subject. Marketing. So for marketing, you might think, I'm a marketer already. Marketing section is going to be a breeze for me. That's fantastic. If you get to the exam and there are certain questions that are easier than others, you should do what? Do them first. Number one, it'll boost your confidence. It's really important. No, but it's really important. Being confident is really important. So it'll boost your confidence. And you'll make sure to lock in those points early on, giving you more time, and hopefully you'll do them efficiently. If you're really comfortable with marketing and you have 22 minutes per question, you should be able to pull out the marketing question in under 20 minutes, for sure. Giving you more time for questions you have more challenges with. I don't care if your questions are not in the right order. Just label them properly, but they don't have to be in order 1 to 7. You can start with number 8. Sorry, not number 8. You can start with number 7, all right, and work your way backwards or whatever. Do whatever you want. Just label it properly. And you have space in your booklet, so don't really worry about that. So marketing. Again, you might be a marketing genius, but keep in mind that we are talking about marketing through the lens of entrepreneurship. There are specific challenges that entrepreneurs face that big companies don't necessarily face. This is what I want to talk about. This is kind of the purpose of this course. It's entrepreneurship, not a marketing course. So sure, we'll talk about segmentation, and we'll talk about all these elements of the 4 Ps, but don't neglect what makes marketing in this class different from marketing in other classes. So financial resources, time, information, personal biases, these are all something that you should be considering moving forward or in answering your questions.
For the mediation also, we have said that they have restrictions to access to distribution and conditions.
Yeah, a lot of things, for sure. All these things can be mentioned, definitely, because distribution is part of one of the 4 Ps, right? Yeah.
Before answering a question like this, do you want to start like the definition, like marketing allows?
So, yeah, some people did a very good job on that in the exam. And I think that, like, writing definition is good, but be really short with it. Don't waste too much space in definitions. It's a good kind of, I think the definitions could be reserved for maybe a small paragraph on top where you're bringing up the topics, the concepts, you're briefly defining them. But the thing is that you don't want to spend too much time on that. Ideally, what you would do is you would implicitly show me that you understand the definition by giving me an example of the concept. Like, that's the best scenario. So try to give me a really small hard definition, but show me you understand the concept by applying it, by giving me a specific example. I mean, what, you define marketing? I don't care about that, right? Show me that you understand why marketing is different for small companies than for large ones, and give me specific examples of how it can impact the company, right? So like, that's the best thing. I mean, you can spend a paragraph telling me why the challenges of an entrepreneur in marketing, or you can spend the same paragraph telling me the specific challenges that this specific entrepreneur is facing, bring up all these 5, and give me specific examples. That's like, diamonds everywhere, right? That's kind of what I want to see. Gems. I really want to see condensed information. It's good for you, and as well, it's good for the reader as well. It's more efficient for both of us. Acquiring market information, so market research, critical component of marketing. Is the research, has any research been done? What are the conclusions from this research? What does it mean for the marketing element of it? These types of questions you have to ask yourself. Understand the customer process choice. I think this is interesting to think about as well. Is your marketing, in your marketing, are you trying to make customers aware in the choice process? Are you trying to alter their perceptions? Are you trying to maybe make them more loyal or refer other customers to your product? So think about that as well. If you give me a marketing plan, you're talking marketing and you're not talking about segmentation, you're toast, right? Segmentation is really important in marketing, just as important as telling me the overall strategy, right? Is the strategy a differentiation strategy, or is it a cost leadership strategy, right? Are we on niche market or mass market? That's also important. So is telling me, what's the segment that you're targeting? Should be pretty important in the marketing plan. The 4 Ps, I think you're really familiar with this. We're not going to spend too much time, but definitely bring it up. Think about, what has been done and what can be done. Again, it's a balance between time to answer the question and time you have for other questions. So make sure you strike that balance. It's not going to be obvious, but make sure you find a good balance. Make sure you understand what's the value that we're giving to customers, and make sure you try to tell me what that value is that you're trying to deliver. Business model, another topic. So business model, when I say business model, I'm not referring to, let's say, I'm not talking about the business model canvas or the lean business model. Business model within the context of this class is basically revenues and costs. Before you even start thinking about revenues and costs, you have to understand, are we a cost leader or are we a differentiator? There's a big difference in how our revenues and costs are going to look like, right? Walmart's revenues and profit margins are very different than Ogilvy's, let's say, right? If you're a cost leader, your main purpose is to keep your costs streamlined and try to pass some of these cost savings down to the customer. If you're differentiated, your main competency is innovation. And that creates differentiation. And that will basically mean that you'll have maybe higher revenues and lower costs, maybe higher profit margins, maybe. But it's definitely different cost structures and different revenue structures for sure. So it's important to at least consider that before starting to talk about the different models. As a business model, right, I don't want you just to tell me, the revenue sources and the cost sources. Think again, strategically, you have to tell me these elements. But, for example, let's look at D&D Mamba, right? Do you think that when they sell peanut butter through Metro or through a grocery store, do you think it's the same thing as when they sell peanut butter directly? on their website, you might think same thing, but not really, right? It's in a way a completely different revenue model. When you're working with the grocers, they take a big cut. They take marketing, they control some of the marketing. When you're going online, direct to consumers, it's a completely different. You can even do a completely different marketing strategy, right? So think of the possibilities of that. And again, you're looking when you're answering a question on the exam, you're looking for things to talk about. So look and think, and make sure you treat the case as if you're the entrepreneur. Understand the business model, understand the revenue streams, give yourself opportunities to talk about these components. And bigger picture, beyond simply the business model or the costs and the revenues, what are the revenue drivers? What are the elements driving the revenues? So what is it for Jason? What are the revenue drivers for Jason in Mamba? What if you ask Jason, what drives your revenues? What would he say?
It's like the stores that buy it.
Getting there. Warmer. Yeah. Even warmer. What do you do here in this class? Made us taste it. And he said it. I do a lot of tasting. Why? Because people aren't going to go and just pick up a jar of Mamba off the shelf. People have to, first of all, there has to be a shelf of peanut butter Mamba somewhere. So distribution is really important. And that personal sales, direct sales, tasting is really important. I think if you were to ask Jason, what drives your sales? He's going to say tasting. So when I make people taste the product, they like it, and it drives my sales. Or he's going to say, what drives sales is distribution. Is my product on shelves? Piquing people's curiosity, we will try it. Those are still drivers of sales. Sure, selling Mamba is a driver of sales, but that's a bit too broad, right?
So that'd be like the sales, the revenue stream.
That would be revenue stream, exactly.
And then how do you?
Yeah, what drives that exactly? What pushes that forward? Think about it. You can get creative. Fair enough. Financing. So like I said, I'm not going to ask you, it's not a finance exam, right? And all these topics I'm giving you, right, limited questions, you're not going to get 10 questions on the same concept. Same thing with financing. I'm not going to ask you, right, 10 questions on financing. If I ask you a question, it's going to be a question. And it's going to be broad because you'll have to use the material in 3 chapters. And again, no need to memorize any of the valuations, ratios for finance. It's not a finance exam. You're not going to be looking at income statements and balance sheets. But big picture, understand some of the important things in finance, right? We talked about it in class. What's really important in finance is cash flow. So I'm not going to ask you for a cash flow statement, but you better understand how the cash flow situation of the company is, how you can improve it, right? Consider the cash flow situation for sure. That's one thing that's important. The other thing is financing needs, right? Financing needs change over time. Right? A startup maybe uses credit cards, uses family and friends. As you grow, your finance needs change. You need more money and you become higher risk. That's when you go to maybe some informal investors, like maybe more family and friends. Once you've exhausted those resources, you look at more formal investors. These are, for example, angels or venture capitalist companies. And you also have crowdfunding, which is always an option as well and becoming more popular these days. The progression of raising money. Again, something to think about. Progressions are good because it gives you more things to talk about. You can talk about the progression of financing in line with the progression of the business. It gives you more opportunities to show me that you know what you're talking about. So, turning to friends and family, I think that's really an important element. At the beginning stages, friends and family and your own financing is probably what makes the bulk of most startups. The next phase is approaching business angels. So why a business angel versus a venture capitalist or venture capital? Typically, business angels go for companies that maybe don't have that super high growth potentials, companies that are not superstars, and typically companies that need a little bit less money. Venture capitalist companies are going after basically superstar companies with high potential, high growth. And then the last 2 steps, going public and being acquired, that's really the holy grail. So So business angels are really important. Make up about 30 to 40 times the amount of money as compared to venture capitalist companies. So keep that in mind. They're much more because they're not as picky as VCs. Types of angels: entrepreneurial, corporate, professional, enthusiastic, micromanagement. Maybe some of them are better than others given the situation. Always keep in mind, it's better to raise more money than not enough money. You don't want to get yourself caught in a situation where the business is put on hold because of a cash flow issue. That's really one of the worst things that can happen to a company. So, predict the amount of money you need, not only today, but the amount of money that you need in the future, given the many inflection points that you have to go through as a business. Also, when you're finding an investor, it's great to find somebody with deep pockets so that if you're in a situation where we need more cash, they're there with that extra cash to help you out. The candidates for VC are very specific. You have to have a management team working together. You have to be a star in the industry. Industry itself has to be seen as highly fragmented and high growth, right? So, back to the question Natalie asked, what if the company is a dog? What if it's not a superstar? Do I mention venture capitalist? Who says no? Who says yes? Who has no idea what I'm saying anymore? Nobody. Okay. If I ask a question and there's no possibility of VC, tell me that I'm excluding VCs because of these reasons. You're showing me what you know. That's the purpose of the exam. Keep on working hard. You almost choke. So I just want to again reference back to Space Jam and Bugs Bunny. But the story is, if you don't remember, is that Bugs Bunny went to Michael Jordan and borrowed some of Michael Jordan's water and convinced his teammates that this water is what made Michael Jordan the superstar that he is. And he gave the water to all of his teammates, and all of the teammates got pumped up and they were ready to really play an amazing, after being basically almost beaten, right? That water, which was just water, he told them it was Mike's secret stuff, and they drank it, and they all became superstars. And the lesson is that half of the battle is definitely psychological. So when you're going to the exam, I'm going to stop this.